So I'm hiking the section of the trail north of Sopchapi, Florida, and it's kind of turned into a quagmire. This is just a section of Forest Service road, and it is a muddy mess. Usually when you see me walking through water, it's nice and clear, and this is not that. This looks like where you might want to hold a mud wrestling contest. So far this morning, the trail's been wet, muddy, and very slow. But I'm thinking I'm getting a little reprieve here. This looks high and dry for a while. We'll see how long it lasts. So if you don't like walking in wet feet, the Florida Trail is probably not the trail you want to pick. I mean, if you do a lot of the other trails, you'll still see people that take their shoes off at every water crossing. They don't want to get their feet wet or their boots wet, and put them back on again. And a lot of those long trails you'll never finish if you took your boots off every time you had to cross a water crossing. But here, I would say at least 40% of the trail is water, depending on the year. Last year was what they called a wet dry year, and I walked through hundreds of miles of water, and this year I think is normal, and I'm in the Panhandle. I thought I'd probably run out of that, but I've been walking in a lot of water here too, and it really doesn't bother your feet. You know, these new shoes today, they dry out so quick. You know, you'll get 2 miles up the trail here, if you don't hit water again, your feet will be dry. I think the main thing is to just really take care of your feet, you know, at night. Clean them. You know, I wash my feet every night before I go to bed. And, you know, the sand, the mud, grind comes through your boots and into your socks and onto your feet. So, you know, it is like sandpaper. If you're going to keep walking without cleaning things up and washing your socks out and taking care of your feet, you'll probably have problems. But other than that, water's not going to hurt you, and you're going to have to get used to it on this trail. The question I get the most, especially from non-hikers, about the Florida Trail is snakes. You know, it's almost like a non-issue. I mean, I look hard for them, and I know where to look, and oftentimes they're on the trail, or if you're on a dike, or you know, on a 2-track Forest Service road, they'll be out in the road because they're trying to catch that sun. That's where they're going to find that sun, especially in the morning. They're just trying to warm up. And so I've been hiking all winter from the Everglades to the Panhandle here, and I've seen one Florida green snake. And if you watched my last video coming through St. Mark's, I saw a little pygmy rattler, again, up on the dike in the sun, just trying to warm himself up. And they're really not a thing to worry about unless you're stupid enough to mess with them. Now, you know, when I take a close-up picture, this phone camera has about a 20-time telephoto on it, and I think on the video it's like 10 or 12. So I'm not close to that animal or that snake. And if you noticed him, you know, he was nervous, and finally he looked at me a little bit. I'll run it again here. And then boom, he was gone off toward the weeds where he could hide a little bit, curled up, and rattled his tail at me. And because it's a pygmy rattler, it's a pygmy snake, very small. and a very small rattle. I mean, I could barely hear it rattling, and but I could see that tail just vibrating. And if it did bite you, you know, it's not going to kill you. I mean, their prey is very small, skinks and frogs probably, and grasshoppers, you know, whatever they can get. Not that the venom wouldn't make you maybe sick and vomit, and who wants to have snake venom vomit? You know, don't mess with them. Give them a wide berth. Same thing with gators. You know, you'll see a million gators, and again, don't mess with them. Stay away from them. Give them a wide berth. The big ones will hold their ground. They won't bother you. The little ones you won't hardly ever see. You'll just hear a splash because they're nervous about the big ones. Anyway, if you're not going to hike this trail because of critters, you're making a mistake, because you just aren't going to see that many. I live to see wildlife, and I'm looking all the time, and I know where to look, and I don't see that much. Of course, it is winter here. If you hike this in the summer, you'll probably see 10 times the critters. But in the winter, you know, you get a lot of cool days. It's a beautiful day today, but we got a little wind, and you know, it's probably going to get up into the 70s, get into the 40s tonight. This is February, last day of February, and tomorrow it's going to be like 65. So when it's cool, you just don't see a lot of reptiles. And I haven't, you know, I've in St. Mark's in past years, I've seen bobcat. I've seen a lot of, I mean, I love St. Mark's, and I'll hike it again. But out here in the piney forest, it's still pretty sterile. You don't see that much. So this is Bradwell Bay wilderness, and I did expect wet here, quite a bit of it. There's probably a couple miles of this stuff, but it's pretty. I mean, you get what you get. It is what it is, but this water and the surface under that I'm walking on is so much better than that mud road I was on. That's just ugly and hard to walk in, but this stuff is much easier. So I just found some dry ground here, and I'm now getting up to my waist, and they say there might be some places in here up to your chest. So I'm putting my phone into its protective case. So if I go over, which is very possible because it's got a muddy bottom, my phone won't be ruined anyway. But it's supposed to be really scenic in here. It's supposed to be a cypress swamp that's never been cut. Virgin timber, so I'm looking forward to it. Found some high ground, so I thought I'd get my camera out. So I have to say, this is probably, I don't know if it's the most challenging, but definitely the deepest water I've been on Florida Trail. Even if you take in the Big Cypress Swamp, I don't think I ever got up to my belly button in the Big Cypress, but here, the water's not as deep as the mud. So you hit a mud hole and down you go. So I've been up to my belly button twice. Got the bottom of my pack wet. And the trailhead's a couple miles yet. So I don't know if it's all this way for a couple miles. But anyway, it is beautiful. beautiful forest in here. And the only thing I've seen wildlife-wise is a freshly killed catbird. And I looked all around thinking maybe a snake got him and he was just waiting to digest him, but I couldn't see anything, so I just moved on. Well, this is different. Probably just needs to be flipped over and baled, but I'm going to see how deep it is before I go to all that work. Well, I'm not making very good time today, but it has been interesting. Now I'm in the piney woods again, which should dry me out. I just crossed Monkey Creek, which I'm actually going eastbound on this section. It just worked out logistics better with where I could find a place for the motorhome and my wife. And so Bradwell Bay Wilderness was interesting, but it was slow and it was deep. And I did cross Monkey Creek without using that boat. I only got up to my thighs. And I don't know if I'm on dry ground now for a while or not. I'm not sure, but it's I'd like to make at least 15 miles today, which I still need to do 3 miles. That was just a slow slog through there. And if there's ever a time to be thankful I had my poles, it was today, because they having a couple of outriggers really helped in that mud. Sometimes your body goes forward, but your foot's still stuck in the mud, and I would have swam a couple of times today without my poles, no question about it. So I was glad to have them. Got a room with a view tonight. Actually, I just parked my tent right in the trail. I haven't seen anything that looked big enough for a tent space off the trail, so I don't think I'm going to have any company tonight, and I'll be out of here at dark 30 in the morning. Good morning. I didn't get up real early this morning because I didn't know if I was going to run into water again, and I didn't want to be up to my butt in water in the dark, but sun's coming up. I slept just before what far out was calling a Jeep road, and I'd rather sleep in trail sections than near roads, especially on a weekend. But as it turns out, this Jeep road is just an overgrown path, but with my headlamp in the morning, it actually kind of cast a shadow on the trail, so you can kind of see where it goes, because it's hard to find these blazes in the dark. They don't stick out real well. So it looks like it's going to be another beautiful day in paradise. Not a cloud in the sky. Sun's going to pop over the horizon any minute. And I should be able to make up some mileage I lost yesterday, because I don't think I'm going to hit anything like the water I had to deal with yesterday. Might be a little more boring today if it's all these piney woods sand roads, but it does let you pick up the pace. So these Ziploc containers, I carry a couple of them you know, they sandwich into each other. But when I start a trip, I carry my stroopwafels in these things too, because it keeps them from getting crushed, or anything you don't want to get crushed you can carry in here. The brand of stroopwafel that I buy actually make 2 diameters, and because these taper, the smaller ones fit in the bottom and the top ones fit perfectly in the top, and there's 8 in the container, so I end up with 16 stroopwafels, which I don't always carry, but if I'm doing a 10-day carry, which I do quite often on a long trail, that's 8 days worth of food and 16 stroopwafels, so it's 2 a day. Perfect. And easy to clean out. I can use it for gathering water if I need to. I mean, there's so many uses to have a good container when you're hiking. The other thing I wanted to talk about this morning was yesterday. So a lot of people carry a dry bag. You can buy a commercial dry bag. I've got a trash bag in the bottom of this pack that I carry, but I seldom use it. Yesterday would have been a perfect time to have deployed it, but by the time I figured that out, I was already up to my ass in water. So basically, I would use that bag knowing that I'm crossing a big river, mostly in the west, and that I might swim. And so yesterday I did get up to my belly button a couple times, which means it was up to my pack, up to about here. So I wasn't worried, because I always keep my sleeping bag, which I really want to keep dry no matter what. I put it in a compression sack, Sea to Summit compression sack, that's also a dry bag. And next to that is my sleeping pad. So, you know, up to about here, I knew I was fine. That wasn't going to get wet. Pack's, you know, not going to let a lot of water in, but it's not waterproof. My tent could have gotten wet, but last night I set it up, it was dry, so it probably never came over this pocket here. But you know, I was wet probably up to my water bottles here a couple times. You know, I wasn't in that water very long. I'm talking a few steps before I got to some higher ground and, you know, got my pack out of the water. But a couple of times it was that deep, and it would have been a good time to deploy that bag. But again, you're kind of into it. It's not like a river crossing. It's a swamp that was, you know, knee deep for miles. So I didn't realize that I was going to go up belly button deep. Beautiful morning. The trail's going along a ridge along the Sopchoppy River. And again, so far I'm staying high and dry. Got the river on one side and the swamp on the other. But as long as I step on this ridge, I'll be good. So when you're hiking, a lot of times you come up with little problems you can solve on the trail. And if you buy a new piece of gear, you may have to start all over, because it might have some little idiosyncrasies you don't like. And one of my problems has been this little tripod I carry to do my filming. And so it has a tendency, just with the rhythm of your walk, to turn its threads out until this falls off. And that happened to me last year, someplace around Juniper Springs on the Florida Trail, and I lost the top part of what holds the camera onto the tripod. And so at that point, I was carrying it in my waist belt, and just that shaking, that top fell off and I lost it. The other problem with carrying it there, even though it's convenient, because if I'm not going to use it a lot, I'll put it in with my water bottles here and put my band around it, then I know it's not going to go anywhere. But the problem with that is I can't reach it when I need it. So then I started carrying it up here in this little shoulder pouch. But I noticed this morning that I almost lost this again. Still the rhythm of the walk that unthreads, and it was just about to fall off. So now the answer to that is to put it in upside down and just have the stem sticking out. So if it does fall off, it's going to fall in the pocket. So it's just little things like that. As if you do enough hiking, you solve all your little problems. It just takes a lot of thought, a lot of experience until, you know, you get all the bugs worked out. So the Sapchapi has some giant cypress trees in here. It's amazing. Another thing that takes a little time to get used to, you kind of fall into a rhythm, but you know, time, water, food management, especially on a long trip. You don't want to run out of food before you run out of trail, but the more you can have in you instead of on you, the faster you can do that. You know, on a time schedule, it's going to help you a lot. You know, keep your energy up, keep your morale up, you know, have things that you really want to eat. If you're carrying a bunch of stuff that doesn't appeal to you, you're not going to look forward to it, you're not going to eat it. As I eat another bacon mustard tortilla. I've been wanting it all morning, and I was going to wait till noon, but it's 10, that's close enough. So I'm making good miles today. The trail actually has been trimmed out here. It's nice and wide. I've seen the machines they use. They must have run machines through this section. I don't know how far it's going to go, but I'm going to easily get 25 in today and in this section shortly. So anyway, another beautiful day on the Florida Trail. Keep smiling.